Hello, Joshua Dide here.
Gabriel Van Ark, how you guys doing?
Hope you're having a good Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday, hump day. And today we're going to be talking about Show Us the Dog, Xander says. We will at the
He
end.
literally just got put away.
Yeah, he's locked away now. So we'll bring him out. That's your reward for sticking around the entire time.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be discussing porn. It sounds like a joke, but porn and its effects on mental health, relationships, spiritual health, well-being, all that kind of stuff. So this is one of those things where I feel like it's hard to start, but once we get started, we'll just go. So yeah, go ahead.
So if you follow the Instagram or me on both, on Facebook too, you would have seen a post in September, and the caption was pretty lengthy. So if you didn't read, I'll just paraphrase really quickly for you guys. Basically, it was a post that I made talking about how I was just a year sober on that day, September. I don't know, can't remember now. But also, I mentioned in a paragraph under that, after I touched on alcohol and cigarettes and stuff, I talked about how I was also 6 months, I guess you could say, sober of watching porn. And I feel like this is a subject that is dicey because I feel like it's like people have an opinion immediately on it because most of them either do or don't, so it's like, if you do, I feel like you are quicker to defend, and think, oh, it's normal to do it. You're a guy, you're normal. You need to spread your seed. You got a primal instinct to, fuck anything you have an attraction to. So this is a healthy way to, let that out. There's research on the expelling of your semen and why it's good for you and all that. And I think that there's merit to all those things, just like I think that there's merit to abstaining. So I guess today we're just going to talk about why I decided to stop, and this guy has stopped longer than I have. I guess he's not keeping track anymore.
No, I literally could not. I could tell you, I was talking to Sarah, my girlfriend, about this yesterday, because she's like, I got family on Facebook and all this stuff. You're going to be talking about this. I was like, yes, but if someone tuned in and watched, they'd be like, oh, okay. They would get a good takeaway. But anyways, the whole point of bringing that up is that I was saying, I know that you were going to bring up, whatever milestone you're at. And I was like, I'm not going to have anything to say because I remember the conversation that I had that, clicked with me. I was like, oh, dude, you gotta quit doing that. But I don't remember when it was. I want to say I was maybe I was in my late teens, probably I don't know, 18 or 19 maybe. But
wow, that's impressive, man.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was that long. I thought it was just maybe a year and a half. I thought you had
no. I mean, I was in my previous relationship when I had stopped. So yeah, I couldn't tell you, and it was the first probably half, I think, of that. So it's been a while.
So you're probably 17.
Yeah.
So yeah,
17 to 19, somewhere in
wow, that is incredible, man. Because So I'm 27. I don't know if anyone here knew that already, but yeah. So I'm probably in the same boat most men are, which you're in a very special place here, being that long sober of it. But I like a lot of males and females too, but predominantly males. So if I ever say guys or you guys, I could be meaning specifically to a guy, and that, and we'll talk more about why that is targeted. But if I want any women listeners that we may have right now to if you yourself are someone who watches porn, I'm not excluding you. I just think that there's obviously different consequences.
Well, we have to speak from our perspective.
Yeah.
It's not it's I don't know the trials and tribulations that are being a woman in those shoes,
Yeah.
Just because I've not been there. We have different reproductive systems and all that, so I'm sure that the mental connotation associated with physical intimacy is entirely not entirely different between the two sexes, but it's just different.
Yeah, different.
You know, it just is different.
Yeah. So for me, it has kind of been like a long battle. And anyone that has reached out to me before, I obviously won't mention names, but since I've started this, I've talked to a lot of people, usually over the internet. It's not normally any sort of in-person thing. People are comfortable to do, and that's fine. But it was definitely like an up and down. It was like, I sincerely felt like when you're addicted to a drug that I could not stop. It's hard to admit for a lot of people, but that's what it was, you know. And it would be like you would do with cigarettes. It would be like, dude, like I gotta just like, okay, like I'll go today. And you go another day. And you just really like, you get proud of like some like bigger numbers, like, oh, it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, you know. And I just want to tell you guys, like, if you are struggling with it and you want to stop, it's just going to take a lot of those like ups and downs. It's going to take like you breaking a 40, 50 day streak or even 100. I've done that. And you're truly like, God, I'm a piece of shit. But I mean, you can do it. You can get through it. All right. So now let's talk about why.
Yeah.
I'll give my take since I'm already talking, and then you can.
Yeah. I feel like the what is pretty like.
Yeah. So for me, I wouldn't particularly identify as religious. And that is like, that's definitely another can of worms. I think it plays into, obviously, for some reasons why someone might personally not watch porn. But for me, I just want to let you guys know it's not any like, oh, God says you can't, or, you know, whatever. For me, it's more of, I started kind of noticing, and early on, even like as a like avid watcher, is that my desensitization to like, you know, certain things that shouldn't be like normalized in my brain was like starting to alarm me. You know, it was like, it started so innocent of just like, oh, I don't want to see like another penis. Like, I'll just watch, you know, two girls. And then it's like you kind of, and then you're watching like some like rougher stuff. And then it just what I found myself like liking, I was starting to see a pattern. I was like, I feel like there's like a greater scheme here, you know, and maybe that's like a conspiracy brain to some people, but like, I really felt like there was a truthful, like the titles, you know, and it was like, I was really noticing a lot of like family oriented stuff, like stepsister, this stepmom walks in on stepdaughter, and it was like, what's with all this family shit? And so I talked about it with a friend that I deem very wise, and I was like, man, what, like, have you noticed like these weird titles? Like, what's with that? And he's like, I think it's, well, porn is free, right? So, I mean, it's accessible to everyone, all ages, and there's no way to monitor it, and you don't have to pay for it. So they know that they're reaching any sex, any race, anyone, any age, with this like devious, like, overturning of like family values. You know, it's one way to, you know, weaponize something and hone in, like target, I guess you could say, target like something that comes very natural to men, just primal, like you just are attracted to what you're attracted to. And you know, it's, I guess I could say that about everybody, but I've always felt like particularly men have like the spread your seed primal instinct,
right? Yeah,
you know,
because
to mate with everything they find attractive.
Taking that back to like just the biological differences between a man and a woman, like when you're a dude and you know you and another woman together create a child, like you're not the entity that becomes pregnant. So you can do it again the next day, kind of deal.
Right.
But again, like a lot of that still does tie back to the same thing. Is, you know, it's like at its very root. It's obvious, I mean, everybody knows this, but obviously physical intimacy is grounded in reproduction, from just like a genetic code sort of standpoint. And I think it can, the point of me going off on this like little rabbit hole is to say that all of this, again, for anyone who's just joining, 100% can apply to women too. We're just going to like, the way that we're going to speak is from our own perspective. Right. And that is the perspective of men. So
Yeah. So with that being said, I started realizing so I was in a relationship for like 4 years, and I was starting to notice like the things I was expecting from my significant other and the things that were like not in her comfort zone that I would pressure. And I found myself saying stuff like that sounded to me like brainwashing. Like, come on, like girls your age right now have already tried this or that, And I was like, what is going on with me? Like, that is not like, she's obviously like not interested in this thing. Like if I was like, hey, do you want to go to the art museum? And you were like, no, I'm not really into paintings. I wouldn't be like, well, you know what? Girls your age, you would just drop it. Like you would just fucking drop it. But it's this like perversion, I would call it. Like you've and you trained yourself, you can, I'm a behavior therapist, and it's like you've rewarded yourself. We call it reinforcement, and you can learn that. Anyone can learn that. You don't have to be a behavior analyst, but, you're reinforcing this behavior. So you are more likely to come back to it. And I mean, that's like the whole science of addiction. And where I was seeing the relationship strain was in that. It was like things I had seen, I wanted to act out, and I think it's key to remember that, like, just because something's just in your head doesn't mean that, like, that's where it stays. And, it's innocent, because action is born of thought. There's, especially from humans, like
1984, that's what that's from, right?
I don't know.
That idea, yeah.
Yeah, and probably, yeah. It's like, if you can control the thought, you can control the action.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you can control people's thoughts, you can control them. So I think when people hear mind control, they think fucking thing on their head and
right.
or drink this. Like, now you're susceptible to what I'm going to say. It's just, it's a biological weapon. It's like, they know you're going to do it because it's free. And I heard this that I'll let you talk in a minute, because I'm kind of,
you're good.
But I want to say this. I'll probably say this a couple times during the video. But here's something to think, and it's a very, very, very insightful phrase. And I heard this from an Instagrammer called Connecting Consciousness. And he said, if it is free, you are the product. And that is like, I think that sums it up in a nice fucking bow and ribbon. It's like, if it is free, you are the product.
Yeah.
And that is something to think about, guys. That is something to fucking think about. Like, why the fuck is it free? All right.
Yeah. Real quick, before we keep going, we're going to check any comments we got. We got one on Facebook right now. Sex and porn are one of the easiest paths to the dark side. That's why Jedi weren't allowed to get married.
It's funny, Xander, you say that. It's funny you say that, because I've always felt like Star Wars was such a fucking perfect depiction of the actual, like, plight of, or not even plight, the fucking epic that is evil versus good.
Yeah.
And one thing I think that is, like, good to mention is, like, whereas we talk a lot about life being illusion, something that sounds semi-Buddhist in what we talk about, and the spirit, and how, ego can get in the way and identity can get in the way. You're still a person, and there's still a game to be played, and there's still, like, you have, like, a set of rules applied to, and that being, like, physics and all that. But to take it a step further, you have, like, an identity being, like, who you were born under, your gender, all these things, these roles to play. And I think that it's key to remember that you have a side to fucking pick, Yeah. And when it really comes down to it, it's light or dark. And how Anakin says in Revenge of the Sith, he says, well, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. And it's like, I know it's just like a pretty, like, simple sentence, but, like, it shows you, like, he really thinks that he's doing good.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember, is, like, a lot of people really think that they're doing good.
Yeah, I don't think
it's not always a malintent.
Right. I mean, like, even in the most extreme forms, like, not to back up Hitler, but in Hitler's mind, Hitler was doing the right thing.
Right. That's a perfect example.
Like, nobody does something. Well, not nobody, but most people don't do things with the intent of being the bad guy. Most people have the protagonist syndrome and want to be the good guy, and are trying to further some sort of cause that they believe is either morally or societally or even spiritually good in some sense. I mean, even I guess I won't give spoilers, but anyone who's seen all the Marvel movies, even Thanos is like trying to push a narrative that he thinks is ultimately beneficial for the universe, even though it costs, billion, I guess, trillions of lives on that kind of a scale. But to that same kind of idea where no one is inherently born evil. At least I don't believe anyone is inherently born evil. And I think that's a great point to bring up about this.
Because
comment.
it kind of goes into what we talk about as a band. There's like this source, the thing that in which all things come from, right? And from it is perfect. It is sensible and mathematically perfect and sound, and it is everything, and it becomes something, and it breaks off and compartmentalizes and becomes human, animal, tree, whatever the spirit's form takes. And you identify typically with that form, which is what we were talking about, But I think it's like that's a good explanation of like things aren't like even snakes and things that are deemed in folklore and fantasy as to being evil. It's not that they're just a snake is inherently evil. It's just kind of like how you're given the example of like vampires.
Yeah.
I can go ahead and tell you. I think that's a clean way of saying it.
Yeah.
It's a really clean way of saying it.
So I just finished reading the Witcher series. I see we got some comments coming in. We'll read those in a second. But anyways, I just finished reading the Witcher books. Great books, by the way, if you're into dark fantasy, read those. Dark is in like realistic, not dark. I know porn is in this title. Not that type of book.
Not that dark fantasy.
In fact, if it was that, I would not recommend it to anybody. But so if you're into like dark fantasy, like Game of Thrones, Vikings, that kind of stuff, would definitely recommend the read. But anyways, the whole point of bringing this up is there is a section where Geralt, the main character, is talking to a vampire named Regis, and they're like debating philosophy. Because Witchers are monster hunters. They're paid to like Van Helsing. They're paid, bounties to hunt down these mythical creatures that are terrorizing the peasants in the countryside, etc. And so in his mind, vampires are evil because they're sucking the blood of humans and killing them and killing animals and all this kind of stuff. And he's debating philosophy with, or at least that's, what's impressed upon him. So he's debating philosophy with this vampire, and this vampire is saying, first off, explains that in this universe, vampires do not drink blood to kill, and they don't drink blood for sustenance. In the Witcher universe, when they drink blood, it actually gets them drunk. So it's like a drug. It's like an addiction that they form. And so this particular vampire, funnily enough, has gone he's on a streak. He's gone 50 years without drinking blood, without having broken the streak, I guess. And so he is explaining to Geralt that vampires aren't inherently evil because he's not performing acts that humans would perceive as evil. In fact, he's doing the exact opposite. He's being this is vigil the right word? This beacon of
vigil is not like a noun.
Got it. Well, anyways, he's clearly triumphing over all these urges that a vampire.
I guess it's a noun, but you're never mind.
Anyways,
yeah.
So what he starts to explain to Geralt is that, well, you think that vampires are evil because they're creatures of the night. No, in no way, shape, or form different from any other nocturnal creature or nocturnal predator. And that's simply because a human operates with the sun, whereas a vampire operates with the moon. So the fact that we cannot see in the dark makes we as humans, it's like when you go back in back in high school, we learned that 65% of people are visual learners, and then 30% or whatever learn through hearing, and then the other 5% are kinesthetic. So most people operate based off of sight primarily. And I promise we're going to wrap this back up. But so when it's dark outside and you can't see anything, naturally your first instinct is to be afraid, because you can't rely on the primary sense that you use to navigate around the world and interpret what's around you. And so that breeds this fear. And then you begin to fear anything that is part of that darkness has an upper hand on you. It's like being afraid of sharks. Like, what's the thing you're most terrified of when you're in the ocean? A shark. It's not something that lives on, it's not a gazelle. It's not a tiger.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that does well in the environment that you do poor in.
Right.
So anyways, to bring this back, full circle, actually, can you help me bring this back full circle?
Yeah, it's just to say, like they wouldn't, like a psychologist wouldn't have analyzed a single serial killer a day in their fucking lives if they truly believed that serial killer was just plain born evil.
Yeah.
You know, they want to know what deviated them, because we know human nature is not that way. And that is all to say that, you know, you have to pick a side, but in the grand scheme, there really isn't a wrong side, I guess you could say.
Right.
Like, because
it's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Because the second you, like, to take it back to the vampire, the second you realize that this vampire does all that he can to help humanity, not only by not drinking their blood, but like he lives among them and contributes to the society and lives by the day now and all this stuff, then they don't seem that bad. It's all a matter of perspective, and anyone or anything can be good or can be evil. It's just a matter of the perspective and what you decide, like just what you're going to do with the hand that you're dealt. That's all. That's all that matters. So, okay, we got a little off topic.
All right. So that. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was going to say we got some comments. Josie says, I came into the stream and y'all are sitting the same way, but Gabriel's foot is tucked under and Josh's foot is over. So they're like mirroring each other. Jason says, where's my Nomad? The Nomad is our tour van. The Nomad is at my grandma's house in her driveway where it's been sitting for quite a while. We start it up every couple of weeks, so it's still running fine. Thankfully, don't worry, we're not going to sell it. We built our own bunks, put them in that thing. I have like a personal attachment to that.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell it.
I don't want to sell it either.
We love it. Josie asked, are blind people afraid of the dark?
Absolutely not. Doesn't even make sense.
Yep.
Of course not. I'm afraid of whatever can eat a shark. That would be any whale.
Yep, there you go. Do we have anything on?
No.
Okay.
Just Killzone said Darth Vader, quotes, come to the dark side. We have cookies and porn.
All right, perfect segue back into this.
Porn are like cookies. I'm just kidding. Porn are. Porn are us.
Porn are us. Okay.
So,
bring this back.
Yeah, you bring it back.
I'm gonna recount like my side, I guess, of when I stopped watching. So for anyone who joined and wasn't here in the beginning, how many months? Days?
9 months.
Okay.
9 months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
9 months porn free.
Yeah. Were you out with drinking over a year?
Geez,
right?
like a year and like 15, maybe more than that now.
15 months maybe. But so I stopped watching back. I don't actually know the date. It was I'm pretty sure it was my late teens. And I don't know the specific date, but I know why. And why was because there was a friend that I had back then. I mean, we're still friends now. We just aren't. We don't talk as much now. But there was a friend that I had back then, and we played music together. And him and I were talking. I want to say we were like, I don't know, in his basement playing like Black Ops 2 or something. And he and I both. I mean, we were in high school, so like that's the age where you're like, yeah, dude, like watch porn once a day, like all that kind of, you know what I mean? Because you're like, you're like in your prime sexually, and so that desire that Gabe was talking about earlier, the like, just the you don't know how to deal with it. Yeah. It's like new.
You have no discipline on it.
Yeah, right. And you don't feel like any guilt, anything, because all it is like this new experience. You know what I mean? It's like when you first start drinking, like you just go so hard once you get
as often as possible.
Yeah, until you start to realize what it's doing to you, and then you're like, okay, now we need to start disciplining this. Like that's the whole principle of discipline in the first place. Is it's introduced when something needs to be done either in moderation or not at all.
Yeah,
right. So the conversation that I had with this friend, honestly, I can't remember how we got on the topic. But he had mentioned to me that he had seen somewhere or read somewhere that there was like scientists had now named a condition for when somebody has watched porn in such excess that they begin to desire porn over actual real life physical intimacy in terms of sexual relations. And so that to me was a real slap in the face.
It's where we are at with food. We physically desire GMO altered, artificial flavored, poop food over the raw, real food.
Yeah.
And I think a good point to, I'm sorry, you're good. This is like a super
we'll bring it back. Yeah.
good way to make the analogy for it. Is like, it's like when your kid is like, I want candy. And you're like, this kid is fucking rotten. Well, you gave them the candy and they would think that a strawberry is sweet if that's all they had. Strawberry is here for them and potatoes and blah, blah, blah. And this strawberry is the sweetest, right?
It's back to the perspective.
Maybe banana or whatever. Yeah. But now that they have fucking candy, artificial, we're off the fucking screen now. Right. And strawberries are here. You know what I mean? I know people are about to start commenting, my kid loves strawberries. That's not what I'm fucking saying. What I'm saying is you don't even create the opportunity for it to be there. And that is what porn 100% does. It is a fucking intensified, like all right there, just everything you could want, everything like, and to prove
that the things you don't want, the things that somebody else wants you to want, like packaged into it.
Yes.
It's like putting caffeine in Coke. Like, was not really necessary because the beverage on its own is like a flavor journey. Flavor adventure.
Yeah. An experience in itself.
Right. But like just to make sure that people would drink it, it's one of the most caffeinated, or like Mountain Dew especially. Mountain Dew is one of the most caffeinated soda beverages that there is. Just to make sure.
Like fucking heroin. Mountain Dew drinkers can't quit. They just they'll die if they don't have a fucking Mountain Dew.
Right. So, but to bring this back around to my personal experience. So when I heard that phrase when I was told by that friend that scientists had come up with a condition, a name, and you would have to look it up. I don't know the actual name, but he told me that this, like, it was such a common problem that it had a title assigned to it, so that when scientists are discussing it, it's like math. That way, like, they can do it, cross language, all this kind of stuff. Like, if you say this title, this phrase, then it's like, oh yeah, that's the vocab word we're talking about. Like, that's what it is. It's like that. It's that common of a problem. It's like dementia. If I say dementia, you know what dementia is. It's the same kind of idea. It's a condition where you have been conditioned. That's interesting. I never realized the linguistics of that. Yeah. But where you have been conditioned to associate physical intimacy with something on a screen as opposed to like the real life thing, which is supposed to be an expression of love. Like it's supposed to be an expression of what some, including us, would say is the most pure form of communication in this universe, like in this realm.
It literally creates life. It's the only thing you can do. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, obviously with the help of another person.
Right. But so to hear that and to think like, oh man, if it's happening to a lot of people, it could happen to me. It's like, it's like drunk driving. It's like, some people hear it and it's like out the window, and then some people hear it or they have a personal experience with it and you're like, okay, like that won't be me, like, it's like, what are you going to do about it? So I heard about it and it freaked me out because I was like, no way am I getting to that point. Because like, I'll just be blunt.
I'll be blunt, man. I got to that point.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember being like, dude, I think it might have something to do with the lighting, like just everything about it, like just the fucking way it's presented is presented so much prettier than actual sex.
It's like,
and I say that because that's what I've, you know what I mean? Like he said, like that's the condition I'm in now.
Yeah.
Not now, but was in when I was watching all the time. Was like, that was what it was supposed to look like to me. It was dressed up.
Right. It's like when you go to Best Buy and you see the like $2,600 TVs, like OLED or whatever, and you're like, how does that look better than real life? I don't get how that works. It's like that. It's presented in a way that takes it's like a bunch, and I'm sure this probably happens, but it feels like a bunch of psychologists got into a room and we're like, okay, what are all of the things that people A, are sexually attracted to, and B, visually attracted to?
Yes.
Like,
how can you
what
fit?
colors?
How much beauty and attraction can you fit in and outside of the couple that's in the video?
Right.
All into this fucking box. So no one can fucking get out of watching it.
Yeah.
There is fucking midget porn and fucking tentacle porn. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter. No one is exempt. No one.
Yeah.
And they will have millions of videos for whoever you are, for whatever you want.
Yeah.
For too many man hours for one life to even consume. Think about that.
Yeah. It's like the idea that, like, you know, there are more stars than there are grains of sand on all the world's beaches. It's like that, but with porn, it is like, I wonder how many seconds of porn there are compared to the number of stars in the universe, because I feel like it's gotta be close. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So anyways, the whole point, I guess, of going on that tangent is, so that is what smacked me out of it. And I hope there is one person watching right now, if someone is struggling with this, that will be like, you know, a driving force for you as well. Because in my mind, I was like, there is no way I'm going to give up something that, like, to be blunt, is just great. You know what I mean? Like, and like, obviously from, like, just the baseline perspective of, like, oh yeah, sex is cool. But also, as you get older and, like, and your mind matures, and, you know, depending on how you develop, but for me, like, spiritually, how I've developed now, looking back, I'm like, oh, that's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Because
oh yeah, I would never go back.
If I had denied myself of that form of expression, that form of love, you know, because, like, it is a key component of love. Like, as a human, that's the perspective you have to take, and, like, the physical element of that is a part of being a man or a woman. And to deny yourself of that is to deprive not only you, but someone who's, you know, like your twin flame, your match, your soulmate, of like the right partner. And that, I mean, you can get into all sorts of stuff, like that can mess with your soul journey and all that kind of stuff. But point in case being, know that is a condition, and know that it affects people. And if it affects you, I don't actually know how many people it affects. I just know that the fact that it has a name freaked me out enough.
It probably is an alarming number that you would be very queasy hearing.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to say is, first I want to touch on some deeper things to it. So we talked about relationships. If you've just joined, we talked about how, you know, well, we touched a little bit on mental health. We could probably go back to that. I
have a big thing on that. Okay. So yeah.
But we touched briefly on how, you know, just depleting those chemicals over time and creating a condition for yourself and creating an addiction for yourself. I should use the word. It, you know, obviously is going to ail your life and, you know, prevent you from the happiest, you know, quality of life you could have. So, best quality of life you could have. But there's also, I think, a side that is easily overlooked, and that's like the kind of way it is used as a weapon in societies. And I wanted to point out, you know, there's many things you can look at that is like obvious to, like, you know, is used for control. And maybe it's not obvious to everyone, but you know, if you've if you've grown over your years, you know, and your time on Earth, and you see it in things, you know, you're like, okay, like this right here is just a trap to keep you, you know, like Netflix. You could see the way the linguistics of it, like binge watch the first season now. You can just look at the trap.
And the way that like the next episode rolls over in like 3 seconds. You don't even like if I watch on an Xbox, I don't even have time to turn the controller on if it is right next to me.
Yeah, and it used to not be that way. It used to actually be like 10 seconds, and then it's like over time they realize, okay, attention spans are shortening. Let's make it 3 seconds, and then now it's just fucking immediately.
Yeah,
like, you don't have a choice. Like I had a friend tell me last night, he's like, dude, I ended up watching a whole season of Big Mouth, and I was like, what do you mean you ended up? And he was like, I was gonna watch one episode, and then the next one started, and I was like, I could watch one more, and then I was like, next thing I know, I just like it's like I came to, and I was like, the season's over, and I was like, and we started talking about this. We started talking about this today. I was like, dude, just look at the trap that is binge watching. They use the word binge. When have you heard binge before? Binge drinking, like the fuck, like they're literally like just literally hiding in plain sight. Binge watch the first season. Well, what does that make? What does that make of you? Just a fucking mindless, just while you're getting your programming, literally TV programs are called. I look at the fucking words, and you know it's like makes you just a nothing, a waste, just wasting.
And then this is
time.
not. Hold on, real quick, because I know you're like going in. We've both been guilty of this. So this is not to be like I'm here on my soapbox. Like
most of what I say are ideas.
It's like I think this about myself.
Yeah, I feel that way when I watch like hours of TV. I'm like, man, I could have fucking learned a skill, got better at piano, wrote lyrics, fucking spent time with my dog or my significant other, and here I am just fucking watching TV. You know, like anyway. The point of that is to saying you can see it in other things, but it's harder for people for some fucking reason to see it in porn. They're so involved in what it is, they don't come out of it. And I think that's important. When you stop watching it, you see it.
And a big part of it, I think, too, is because nobody wants to discuss it, like on a real level. The only discussion that at least in my personal experience, and I feel like this is probably pretty commonplace, the only discussion you really have about porn is like
that you're watching.
Yeah, that you're watching.
Yeah.
Or like that you did watch it and someone's like, oh, bro, I did too last night. No way. Like, it's like that. There's no, like, it's always very surface level and like, it's like a joke. It's like, it's the same thing as like, oh, I'm dead on the inside. It's like how that's presented as a joke. When really like, oh shit, can we like rope it back for a second? We as a society have popularized that kind of speak and made it okay. Like, I get that it's funny. I understand why the first person said it, but now that's like normal to us. And that kind of normalization of being depressed and not seeking help, but just kind of like sitting in it. It's good to find humor in it, but it's better to find humor in it and get out of it. You know?
Yeah, instead of just doing it and fucking staying in it and thinking, you should stay in it just because everyone else is. Like almost like purposefully remaining like less of what you could be potentially to fit in.
Yeah.
It's like why devalue yourself just because everyone else devalues themselves?
Yeah.
Consciously or unconsciously.
Well, dude, you know what? I also think that especially this year, to be honest, with the pandemic and the lack of, actual interaction that we've had.
Yeah.
The only stuff that I've really seen on this topic on porn or, any kind of like sexually explicit internet, all that kind of stuff, like e-girls and cams and what's the OnlyFans, all that kind of stuff, is the popularization of it, which like, obviously there's an argument to be made that like, okay, like, people lost their jobs, they needed to make money, all this kind of stuff. And that's like what you hear in music a lot of times, like especially old hip hop music, where it's like, how else are they going to make ends meet? They got to work the corner, feed the kids, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So like, obviously there are arguments on both sides. However, I feel like we can all have a discussion about how I don't think that's what anyone sets out to strive to achieve as the end all be all.
Yeah.
I think it is a means because again, it's like, and in that scenario, like I understand, like you got to make ends meet, but at the same time you're sacrificing, you're on like the opposite side of the viewer of porn. You're desensitizing yourself to physical intimacy through providing that to just kind of like everyone, you know?
And you got to look at it as like you are supplying more demand and therefore circulating the problem. You are single-handedly by being the OnlyFans girl or boy or whatever the fuck, like perpetuating something that you can look at it as, it's the same thing as saying like my vote doesn't count. Like you can look at it as I'm just one person, but if every fucking one person thought the opposite, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, if 0 fucking girls and 0 fucking boys were willing to do porn.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's the fact that there's a willingness. And we talked about this with the Black Magic, lyrics, behind the lyrics video, which we'll release.
Coming soon.
Yeah. So little sneak peek, I guess you could say.
Spoiler.
There's something I said in there. It was like, well, like the devil, whatever you want to deem that, evil, the devil can only do what he can convince you to do. You know, it's your own weaknesses that are played on that is how evil exists. And that's why we're talking about how, you know, there is only like good, and then everything else is a twist or a perversion or a, you know, and perversion meaning, you know, not just sexual perverts or sexual perversion, but a perversion of truth, perversion of whatever you want to look at it as.
Yeah.
And that was all to say, I think there's important things that people need to think about. You know, like if you don't like the idea of being, you know, targeted as a person and enslaved in any fucking way, you know, that's another way to look at it. Is like, I mean, I've seen videos in the 80s of I think it was a Russian, I don't remember what his job title was, but it was this Russian guy talking about how countries take over other countries. And one of the things he mentions right off the bat, he was like, okay, first they make porn like widespread, accessible to everyone. Because if you can demoralize, you can dismantle anyone.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's okay. So he was talking about like what did it for him, where it was like, man, I got to stop. His, if you're just joining, was wrapped up really quickly, was a quote he had, or not a quote, but a fact that he had heard that scientists were now describing a condition that they had named. It was that big of a problem that they had named it, where people were preferring porn over actual sex. For me, it was hearing that porn is actually a part of a greater scheme to enslave you mentally and so therefore physically, to keep your vibration down, to keep you physically down, to keep, you know, whatever you want to put it in, because it works in all ways, metaphorically, physically, mentally, metaphysically, doesn't matter, to keep you down. And it is a weapon. It is a weapon, you know, and whether or not it's affecting, you and your wife, or you and your girlfriend, or whatever, you and your boyfriend, and that's all it's doing for you, and that at that level you want to take care of it, take care of it. If it's affecting you because you feel like it's affecting what I just said, you feel like there's something more to porn. You feel like it's a fucking, like it's something, it's some type of warfare. Get it done. Stop today. Fucking put it away. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what level you or what reason you have. It's just, it matters that it hits everyone. That it hits the smartest, it hits the dumbest, it hits the fattest, it hits the skinniest. It doesn't fucking matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter if you have the fucking Nobel Peace Prize. It doesn't matter if you're the president of the United States. It doesn't matter if you're fucking just a no-name sage in the forest. It affects you. It would affect that sage. Yeah. You know, the difference is that he can discipline himself. That's why he's a sage.
Yeah, but it would affect him.
It would affect him.
Yeah, every human is born with that innate desire, and that's the issue. This entire industry is built on taking advantage of that innate desire.
Oh yeah, they know you will react because you can't not.
Yeah, you have to.
It's not like a fucking like, oh, do you guys like heavy metal? Okay, we'll put this message into heavy metal only, and you're only susceptible if you like that subgenre. No. It affects humans.
Yeah,
humans.
Right. And there are very few things that have that kind of mass appeal.
Yes, Sarah. we touched on that briefly in the beginning, actually more than briefly. Yes, it first and foremost will affect your immediate...
for Instagram, the comment says porn addiction can destroy a relationship pretty effectively as well. I go.
Yeah. But yes, Sarah, I agree. That is like the first thing it'll affect. Other than yourself, obviously, it'll affect you first and foremost. But in your immediate circle, you know, before you even start going out to your friends and spreading it, it's going to affect who you're around, even if they don't know. Even if you go 20 years, never telling your significant other you've been watching it, it will affect what you expect
for a ton of reasons too. Like one, obviously, like there's the perspective that it's cheating, and like you can hold that or you cannot hold that, but. Secondly,
virtually.
Right. I mean, I think it is personally, but, and, you know, again, we have to take this idea that like the screen is not separate from actual interaction. Like to me, I feel like they should be taken as one and the same. If I use
a Zoom call,
like, dude, if I use some sort of derogatory term to you online, that should be the equivalent of me saying that face to face, and I should get reprimanded as such. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's the same kind of thing. And that, I mean, I think that applies to everyone. If I apply it to me, I feel like, you know, it's like,
right.
So anyways, obviously, it affects you in that way if that's kind of, you know, a rule of your relationship that's been established. Furthermore, it affects, again, like what you expect out of your partner. You know, it's not like it's an arbitrary set of guidelines, I guess. Right. It's like being handed a rule book or a playbook, if you will, from someone else, and not because through repeated exposure, like over and over and over again. Because if it happens like one time, it's like anything. If you smoke one cigarette, you're not gonna be hooked on cigarettes. You're not gonna get lung cancer. But if you keep doing it, you're going to get lung cancer, and that's the way that it goes. You're going to get the black tar lungs and all that stuff. So what I noticed that happened, and what he described, and what I'm sure that anyone who, you know, has had experience with porn in the past is realized, is that you begin to have these expectations of the other person, like he was saying earlier. And if the person's not comfortable with them, then you have to have, you know, a conversation, or you reach some sort of impasse or whatever. And the hope is that you can then, you know, have the internal discussion of, okay, like, I know why I'm expecting these things, all this kind of stuff. Because, like, I don't want to get into, like, the gruesome, like, nitty-gritty of it, you know? Like, what you'd expect. But it's like...
Well, it's different for every person, too.
Yeah, and it's like, this is not, like a fetish shaming kind of thing. But I do think that there are some things that are impressed on people arbitrarily or externally. So, and you know, and then you don't get the chance to even have that conversation with the partner in your relationship. It's like you just came to that conclusion on your own and then brought that to the table. And that could happen, you know, after you start dating. Right. It's like, you know, that's something I feel like you need to establish right when things start getting, I feel like a sex ed teacher right now. Yeah. Like as you start getting physical with your partner, like you have to set, you know, like the ground rules and the boundaries and like all that kind of stuff. And if you watch porn, you then like have this expectation, not only like of these things that you may or may not have wanted, but also that the other person is going to be forced to accept them. That's the other side of it too. Yeah. So it's very like, it's like the System of a Down song, violent pornography. It's like, you expect like this kind of domineering sort of where you're both just like down for whatever, and you both might not be down for whatever. Like,
exactly.
Like, I know this term is overplayed a lot, but like any kind of sexual interaction should be a safe space where you can like, I don't think I've ever actually used that term before. Yeah. But like, this is one of the times where like, yeah, I completely agree with that. Like you have to have that conversation. And again, I think that porn kind of makes you feel like that conversation doesn't need to be had. You know, it makes you feel like you can just kind of assert your desire onto the other person.
Well, especially if it's I'll get to the gritty because I think this is a big problem, especially if it's based in like a form of dominance that is forced, like for like a play rape or an actual rape or bondage. And I think that needs to be voiced because I don't think that you naturally would just want to tie someone up and very like aggressively or even with them saying no, want to do that. And here's why I say that, because maybe you're into bondage, maybe you're into some of that kind of thing. And I mean, I'm not here to tell you, hey, fuck you for that. But what I will say is my opinion. And what I will say is that I do believe that that is a deviation. And the reason I say that is not just because animals don't do it, but because I feel like you're willfully kind of like, I guess, simulating something that would naturally, or in the natural world, be a threat. And I guess you could just ultimately chalk that up as like either adrenaline seeking, or the fact that maybe a girl had like some sort of, or even guy had some sort of like past like incident. So let me give you a nitty gritty example. Let's say a boy was molested or raped very young in his life. And then later on in his life, he developed this sexual craving to restrain other men and aggressively assert his sexual dominance on them, right? Well, the reason I would say that is now a problem and not a fetish and shouldn't be normalized is because now he's perpetuating and giving that problem to the person, even in a space where it's like, how you saying, a safe space, even if it's like that person agrees to be doing it and you obviously want to because you're talking about doing it and involved in it. I would say that is for no positive and good reason other than quenching a thirst is giving them that issue. Yeah. It's like not to say that rape and porn are the exact same thing, obviously not, but it would be like forgiving. And okay, so we live in a world today where rape is 100% inexcusable. It doesn't matter if you've been raped 100,000 times. You cannot do it. You can't do it to another person. Yes. Well, where does it typically come from? Just for no reason? You just want to do it? No. It typically, and I don't know the statistic, but so I'm not going to say like 9 times out of 10, but what I will say is I firmly believe most of the time the rapist is, in fact, a victim. Yeah. And does that make them right? Absolutely fucking not. I'm not here advocating it. But for them to, let's say we just normalize rape. Let's say we were all like, hey, that's fine because like that's just what he's into and like that's what happened to him. So that would be kind of how we're handling a lot of things today in society is just pampering and just saying, well, that's all right. It's okay that you think that because this happened to you. It's like, well, wouldn't you, we all expect in our society and other societies, we all expect the rapist to be reformed, to put away the habit and to not give anyone else that negative experience. Right. So why would, I just don't understand why if you love someone, let's say it's not just a hookup, right? It's not just a hookup and bondage, a little play. Let's say it's someone you love. Why would you want to even simulate? Why would you want to get near something that, to you was life-threatening and very, very, very horrible for you? Why would you want to even play that out for them? Let's not even involve yourself anymore. Why would you want to put them through that? And I don't think people ask these hard questions. I don't think people spend enough time in self-reflection of why they have certain fantasies. I said in a song before, we'll go over the song later today. It was in a song completely speaking out in pornography, and I was saying that I believe these billion-dollar industries manufacture your fantasies, and we talked about that in the beginning. It's like you see these titles. You can get on. I'm not going to encourage you to get on Pornhub right now, but you could get on Pornhub right now, and I can guarantee right there on the fucking homepage, you're going to come across at least 10 titles that relate to stepdaughter, stepson. And like I was saying, you're just immediately wanting to, completely upset your family dynamic. But, over time, if you condition yourself to that standard, it normalizes in your brain. And
right. It's like there already is a condition for that. It's called a fucking Oedipus complex. Like, why are people watching this shit? That's been a complex for years. Like, so, all right, we're going to let's dive into some comments real quick. So we've got Brianna says it can also enhance a relationship, and Sarah said, I agree, in moderation and depending on the type of porn. My ex was addicted to animal porn and mother-son porn. Okay, before we're probably going to have to address things like one at a time. Because this will probably be...
These are great comments.
Yeah. Thank you for contributing to the discussion.
I hope the 6 viewers on Facebook are Sarah and Brianna, because Brianna, I would love to get to yours. I was hoping we would get...
right,
at least some questioning.
Right,
Yeah.
So, and real quick, before we dive into anything else, I do want to point out, because he had mentioned that these are, this is the hard questions. It's the kind of stuff that you don't get to have a conversation a lot about because it's scary to talk about. I'll just be candid and say, dude, coming into this, and even right now, I was and am far more nervous than I have been for an actual performance of ours in a long time.
Yeah.
This talking about this subject is so so just out there in our current society. It's scary. Dude, I have my doubts the past couple, not doubts, but my reservations the past couple of days knowing that we were going to do this, and even putting up the promotional post for this yesterday. I had a queasy feeling putting it up. I was
it's hard.
Now it's real.
You're hitting like we were saying earlier, like porn does. It hits everyone. You're hitting everyone with this hard narrative to drive, but it's worth doing if it's what you think and it's what you believe. And I think that is the standard I've been holding myself to.
Yeah. So, and we see we've got some Instagram comments too. We'll get to those in just a second. So anyways, in response to Brianna saying it can also enhance a relationship, and then Sarah replying, saying that she agrees in moderation, depending on the type of porn. She had an ex who was addicted to animal porn and mother-son porn. I want to touch on this first. I want to say, so here's my perspective on it. You had an ex who was addicted to animal porn and mother-son porn, which obviously, as you stated, is problematic. There are a lot of issues with that. Taking it back to the Oedipus complex, that is not in a baseline human's genetic code. That is not a naturally occurring thing. And the animal porn, definitely not a naturally occurring thing. Simply because a human cannot reproduce physically with an animal, it is not.
And also there's just there's such different cognitive I would honestly say it's almost equivalent as trying to have sex, you as someone completely sound mind, and having sex with someone that is mentally disabled, whether that be mental retardation or something like that, some sort of mental ailment. It's you are taking advantage of the fact that they are not capable.
And most animals do not take pleasure in having sex. I think it's dolphins and maybe a couple others.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a fucking cat has a spiked penis. That's not good for anyone.
Right. So most animals do not enjoy having sex anyway. Sorry that this is such a gruesome topic. But what I'm trying to get at is my perspective on this is those addictions never would have come up had porn not been in the fucking hand of cards in the first place.
Yeah, he would have to have actually physically gone,
and we're assuming,
and had sex with his mom or with an animal.
Right.
He could not simulate it without porn.
Right. So, and that's the thing. It's then you get to the big questions, the deep psychological questions. And I see that Josie mentioned that it comes back to psychology always here, which is 100% true, because all of this comes back to the psychology of it. It comes back to, okay, was this something that was impressed on you over time? It's like anyone on here who's in marketing. There's the marketing funnel. There's the initial first exposure to something. It's called the cold audience. It's what you are when you're first exposed to something. And so that I would assume in the porn marketing funnel be the normal shit, just the normal one dude, one woman, or two dudes, two women, whatever, just whatever your sexual preference is.
It's covering all bases.
It's the normal 1-to-1 kind of scenario.
Yeah.
But like Gabe said earlier, it's if you're gonna watch someone else have sex, maybe to him, because he's straight, and he was okay, I don't want to see another dude's penis, so I'm gonna watch 2 women, and then
that's how it started for me.
That's how it started. Yeah. So it's then you create this the perversion begins. You were impressed over and over and over again because you're exposed over and over and over again willingly to associate physical intimacy with two women. So that can lead to a lot of things. That can lead to like a desire for a threesome, for example.
Or the fact that I'm not a woman and don't identify as one.
Right.
But I'm getting like a, yeah.
Right.
Well, that's another can of worms.
So anyways, and then taking it all the way down the funnel at the very bottom, it's like it leads you into just the crazy, nasty fucking shit, you know, like the animal porn and the mother son porn and all that stuff. But like no one
snuff and fucking just like what are we watching?
Yeah,
what are we
right. So it's like this wouldn't happen if there wasn't the initial exposure. And again, like I'm not clean, he's not clean. I mean, I'm clean now. I've been clean for a long time, but I've watched it before, and not. And
you're not like, totally unscathed.
Right, yeah. Anyways, I've watched porn in the past. And so, but the thing is, I got out recognizing that like it's a slippery fucking slope and it leads to this kind of shit. So,
okay, so I do want to talk about this with Brianna because I see she's still in the chat, so that's wonderful. So I mean, I'm not exempt from that. I have watched porn with past significant others, not with my current one. And I think what the angle that I take and needs to be taken if we're going to discuss that is it can enhance if the two of you are both finding things in the scene that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise, right? It was what you were saying, like your imagination went there. Now, I would put forth the argument that anything really outside of like natural positions that you would just naturally do, like doggy, I think is like a pretty natural position, right? I mean, you could mimic it from what you see animals doing naturally. You know, as far as like angle wise, it's a pretty efficient angle. It's going to hit different spots, all that stuff. And then obviously, you know, we are like standing Homo erectus, you know, so there's different things we can do that a dog couldn't, obviously, like missionary and like all that stuff. But I believe that anything really outside of like the natural scope of things falls into the category I was saying as perversion, you know, like as far as like adding people or, you know, adding all that kind of thing, like to me is where it becomes an ordeal, you know, like the first thing that is expected of like adding a person is, can you cut off the feelings? Well, why would you even have to discuss cutting off feelings involving the third person in the first place? Because you both have established that the two of you love each other and have feelings for each other. So you add a third in the mix, there's a third set of emotions. Since we are human, obviously we have emotions. We have to incorporate that. So then the thought between the two is, well, now we have to make sure that we can cut that off, because that is a problem to me, because we have both said we're together, no third. So then it's like, well, now we have to talk about, why would adding a third person even fuck with your emotions? Could it be that sex is emotionally driven or involves the emotions? Of course it does. So then it becomes, now are we straining the relationship just on a surface level, just by adding that third experimental option? Sure, it can enhance. Sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's been many times where I totally full-heartedly would have loved to involve a third person. However, now I do not have that. And I think a lot of that is the fact that I've not been watching. And I'm glad that I didn't involve that third person, because I do believe that it would cause self-consciousness for myself, for the girl I was with. It would have definitely caused some like issues with because the girls I've had in the past too did not identify as bisexual. So now it's introducing this whole other scope of like, well, now she's like questioning, you know, who she is as a person and everything. And I'm not even saying that that's the wrong thing. I'm just saying it's going to cause a stack of things that are all kind of under the wing of deviation. Whereas if it was kept to 1-on-1, like an animal would do, which we're bringing it back to the instinctual level, it's kind of just, what more do you need kind of thing? Like we're saying, like you become so enthralled with the artificial flavoring, like I gave with the food analogy, that is like, what are you not getting out of you and one other person, you know? And I think that's some self-reflection that people don't really look into enough, is why am I performing this act with another person and getting nothing out of it? Why am I getting bored with them?
Right. It's like, it's the whole like, okay, you start drinking coffee and you need like half a cup and you're like jazzed. And then you drink coffee every single day for like 3 months. And then you have to have 4 cups of coffee to feel anything from it.
I would put forth that, maybe there's a discipline that needs to be there. Like maybe not every time you get your dick up, you got to right away fuck, you know what I mean? Or maybe every time like, you just have like some sort of horny thought, not acting on it immediately. I mean, that there's physical science to back that is not healthy to just be ejaculating all the fucking time. You know what I mean? Maybe not for a woman because I don't know how that works exactly, but I know for a man, just consistent, constant ejaculation is bad for a man, is horrible for a man. Your life source, your creativity all come from this area, from this chakra point, this source of energy. To deplete yourself time in and time out over and fucking over again every day, every fucking 4 hours even. I've had friends say they can't go 6 hours. To just deplete yourself of that life source all the time, literal life source. I mean, that's the seed of life from you, from a man, the seed of life. All of the time out of you is going to be on a scientific only, no spirituality involved, bad thing.
Right.
So maybe that's something to think about, or maybe it's something to think about. Maybe you're not hard to say this to someone in love with the person,
right.
It could be that, but that's just one aspect of it. That's a rabbit hole in itself.
Yeah.
To be honest, so we could go on.
I want to give one like last little touch on this concept.
Sure.
And then I see we've got a ton of stuff going on Instagram. I don't know if it's for the conversation, but having not watched porn for a long time, like I don't know, 6-ish years, maybe more, maybe a little less, around that amount of time. I can speak from my personal experience that like that is not a problem that I have experienced. Like
becoming bored,
bored and like finding like nothing new happening, because I realized like in the middle of you on your last
rant,
rant is that, dude, we probably sound like just the most stale fucking wheat bread.
Oh, I'm sure.
Boring ass dudes. But so what I will say is that I've actually felt more in tune with my partner. I've been in 2 relationships since I stopped watching porn. I felt more in tune each time having not watched it.
Yeah.
Solely because once you like get through kind of, I'm going to say coping like grief, but I mean coping as in like getting used to something. So once you get through the phase of coping with not having porn as a part of your life, you begin to become far more in tune with you, with yourself, with your body, with your instincts, with your urges. Like he said, like when you get some sort of like sexual urge, you find it a lot easier to repress, knowing that like, okay, you got to do it the old fashioned way. If you want to have any sort of intimacy,
the old fashioned way, I love that.
You gotta talk to the person you're in a relationship with, and like you both have to come to the agreement to make it happen. Or you can just, go and like, do it yourself to your memories. Not having this instant fucking thing that you just sign on to. You literally,
that's part of the problem too, is that instant gratification.
It's 10 seconds and you're on Pornhub or whatever, whatever other.
Or less, dude. I get sent links still. And that's interesting. We'll get to that too. That's more of the systematic part of it. The fucking, the machinery behind it. But yeah, you get fucking sent in your inbox.
Yeah.
Just click this. It takes one fucking, that's it. Streak's over.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, in my personal experience, that's what I've had. I've felt far more in tune with myself, with my partner, both of our desires, and we've been able to discover, each other, without like I'll say a third party in the mix, and then Brianna says back, so do you feel like if there's a time in your relationship where you're suddenly not getting what you want sexually from your partner, that you would turn to porn to find that release?
Well, I will answer that.
And then she says, I've never done a scene that was longer than 6 minutes.
Oh. Well, I mean, the way it's worded sounds like it's like a not rhetorical question. So I'm going to answer it not rhetorical. I definitely feel like I have hit spells here and there with significant others where I was not getting what I want. And I think that first and foremost, you have to immediately look at the why. So if you can diagnose the why, you may not even really get to the porn part, which I will say. So maybe there's a disconnect because you guys have been fighting a lot, and then that would be an interpersonal thing. And I wouldn't say that porn is the answer. Or maybe that you're not getting something you want because, you're genuinely just not as attracted to the person you're with as other people. And then again, that is an inner engineering work needs to be done.
Yeah.
Or it could be that, the person what you desire, they see as too far for them. And then you have to look at your own desires. Like, well, what am I wanting them to do? Am I just like, man, like I'm so drawn to like anal sex or something, like that. And my partner doesn't want to do it. Okay, so then you have to look at like, why am I so fascinated by a butthole? Like what is it? You know what I mean? And people, I don't think that is asked of people enough in their life is think about why, like, let's truly think about why we're desiring something. Is it the fact that we just desire it? Because we have to look at the times we're in, technology is advanced to a point where it is integrated in our lives entirely. I mean, this is the only way you and I are talking right now is because it exists. And it has its great things, obviously. With any great invention, there are pitfalls, and I view porn as one of those pitfalls. He had mentioned earlier the old natural, old-fashioned way he said. I think that was a really great way of saying. I know he said it kind of in a joking way, but really, truly, if you think about it, it's like before the technology had advanced to the point where you could get sexual satisfaction whenever you needed. You were required to work for it. If you wanted to see boobs, if you wanted to see a penis, if you wanted to see anything that was under wraps, you needed to work for it. And now there is no work involved, and therefore I think that there is no merit to it. There is no positivity other than what you mentioned, which is you're saying an enhancement in relationship or a release where you're not getting it. And I think that both of those can be attributed to underlying issues separately. And where porn shouldn't, if you think that you should definitely diverge from it and get disciplined, that would be a good way to start for sure. Is especially if you're in a relationship, if you feel like you're turning to porn because you're not sexually satisfied, I would definitely fucking put your relationship under the scope and see why. I mean, and do some inner engineering for sure. Like really ask yourself. I think that too many times, this is off the subject of porn entirely, and I'll just touch it for just a second. I think too many times in today's society, we look at this other person in the relationship as the problem, and I think that is it's definitely a problem. I mean, people do not hold themselves under enough criticism. And so I would do that. I would just start, ask yourself the hard questions.
That's a like perfect segue into one thing that I wanted to say in response to this, and that oftentimes I think we forget too, because obviously the problem that you're experiencing, not necessarily you, but that the hypothetical person in this situation is experiencing is that he or she is not getting that sexual satisfaction, but that might not have anything to do with the relationship. It might simply come from the fact that something else is happening in your life and nothing could provide you with the sexual satisfaction. And obviously, you have to attribute that then to your partner because that's the one who you're...
Exactly. That was well said. That was good.
Nice. But the thing is, like, I'll be straight up, like, even in my current relationship, I've had times where, like, I have had so much going on in my life that, like, I've wondered, and it's not, luckily, like, I've, had this conversation with myself. So I'm past the point of wondering if it's like shifting the blame to the other person. Now I'm always like, okay, what's up with me? And I've gotten to the point where I'm like questioning my like manhood in this. And I'm like, man, am I getting old? I'm 24. I'm like, am I getting old? Am I like,
been there,
am I like losing it? Like what's going on? And I'll go like 2 weeks without like a single thought about any kind of like sexual interaction. And then like, obviously there are times where like every single day, it's like, it's the pivot, the back and forth. But, and in those like, we'll call them like dry spells or whatever, what I every single time find is that there's something else going on. Be it like, something with Normandy, like when we do, like when I was finishing, kind of arranging everything for this record that we're sitting on right now. Getting all the stems exported and typing out all the notes for the mix engineer and all that kind of stuff. And that took a ton of time and a ton of energy, and it was taxing and it was awful. Mm-hmm. And I was like, every day coming home from work, I would work out for an hour, and then I would do all that stuff until like 10 or 11 p.m. And it's like no night of the week did I have any kind of like sexual desire. And the thing is, like that is a completely different silo than the relationship, but it causes like in the fallout,
absolutely,
it touches that silo,
absolutely,
and it affects it, and like so it might not even have anything to do with your relationship
or sex at all,
right? If there's
you could not be sexually excited for any other reason under the sun. I mean, it's your body. Your body doesn't want to do something. Yeah. It's like I don't know. Yeah.
Right. So that's the other thing is it could be entirely sex.
It's I think it's a matter of misdiagnosis too. Right. It's like you diagnose sex as the problem or the lack thereof, and therefore there must be an answer, right? So porn can be the answer. Like for myself and past relationships.
That's a good point. Yeah, because you want to answer. You can't answer a math problem with words, you know, like 2 + 2 doesn't equal fish kind of idea.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like the instant gratification phenomenon we've talked about that has like plagued this generation, and I think it's part of that is like because you want to be instantly gratified. That goes into other things that it's like. With problems in your life, you want to be instantly gratified and that you solved a problem. Well, if you can solve a big problem quickly, oh, cool, right? Well, that's the problem is like you're not actually solving it. You're putting a Band-Aid on it. I think porn is a Band-Aid. Yeah. And I'll tell you this. In other relationships I've had, not the one I'm currently in, because in the one I'm currently in, I've not been watching porn. I have had those lows, I call them, or like dry spells, where the girl I'm with and I are just not sexually clicking, or she's not in the mood or whatever. And so I take matters in my own hands, right? It's like, oh, you don't want to have sex? Fine. I'll go in the other bedroom. I'll watch some porn. And I think what I was seeing immediately in doing that is that I was like a kid who couldn't hear no. That's really what it was. Yeah. I was like, man, I really don't have the discipline. I have to go in another room and watch 2 other people that isn't me
do
have sex.
You want to
I wouldn't have done that if I was at a party, right? And there was 2 other people doing that exact same thing, and they looked exactly the same, and they were doing it right there. I would walk in and be like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to fucking disrupt your little exchange of energy." Yeah. I'll close the door and leave. But because you have this virtual voyeurship, right? Or voyeurism, whatever the word is, to just not be seen, even though you are being seen.
And you're like you attribute yourself to being a different person. It's like saying, "Oh, I was drunk. That's not me." Yeah, it's the same kind of idea.
But you're virtually a voyeur, and you are behind the plate glass, like you see in whatever it is. I don't remember the movie title, but you're just getting something out of it, right? And I think that's another thing you need to ask yourself is why am I seeking pleasure in other people's pleasure, and how does that affect my quality of life? And obviously, everything we're saying can definitely diverge into another rabbit hole. So if you have any questions about that and your opinions on that, you can comment and we'll get back to it. But so that is all to say that. A quick fix is not always the answer. Yeah. And, if you go into the room and you're like, "Hey, baby," and immediately your significant other hits you with, "I'm not in the mood," then maybe we need to think about if holding off is a better answer than possibly perpetuating, what could further into addiction. Like Brianna, you said, you never watch more than 6 minutes. Well, like he had said, to go a mile, you have to start an inch. To take it too far, you got to start with a step. To any action, there's a thought. It goes all the way back. It always reverts back to the birth of any problem, is that if 6 minutes, 55 minutes doesn't come from nothing. It comes from, you know what I mean? Like You see what I'm saying? 6 minutes can turn into a bigger problem.
Right.
And yeah.
So here we've got actually scroll. Can you check Instagram real quick? Looks like we got some stuff there. So here on Facebook we have Josie says, wholeheartedly agree with the notion that becoming bored with physical intimacy in a committed relationship is absolutely a symptom of loss and emotional or otherwise.
Well said, Josie.
Intimacy.
Beautifully said.
Brianna agrees. Josie says she thanks Brianna for bringing her perspective. Josie says,
yes, thank you, Brianna.
Yeah. No, this is good. This is exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
Josie says sexual deactivation is what I call it. That term is awesome. And I feel like we absolutely find out so much about ourselves in those times.
Nailed it, Josie.
Yep.
Yes, you need to put yourself under the microscope to see why you are having the problem.
Yeah. Brianna says, that's how I feel guys are when I'm doing a Chatterbait stream or when I'm doing a live show on OF. I dealt with so many guys in a live stream that are only there because they couldn't get it from their wife or girlfriend that night.
Yes.
And
because it is this way, like streaming, like a Zoom kind of thing or whatever, and the interaction is like becoming interpersonal, I would say that those men that you're dealing with are doing what I call virtually cheating. Right. And I don't mean to say that like they're virtually cheating. I mean virtually, like synthetically, electronically.
Right.
It's a synthetic lover. They are connecting with you and your body and their body in a synthetic manner to have this, seed of life spilled from them in a simulation rather than with their woman because they couldn't take no for an answer. That I'm going to dumb it down like that and just say it like harshly like that. And the reason why I'll say that, Brianna, is because I hold myself to that standard. Is because if I can't take no for an answer, I'm the same as a kid in a candy store looking up at the fucking Laffy Taffy and pissed off that my mom couldn't buy it.
Yeah. Well, and I have two things to say. First is that if anyone, has an addiction to pornography, and if what we have said has not convinced you that it's a bad thing, let me give you one other reason why I think it's better to take that no for like its truth and just wait. Is that, dude, sex is honestly so much better when you waited. Like, it's
come on. I mean, we don't even have to have the same belief system. We can all agree. It is better to bottle up and explode than to just be dripping from a canister every day. Come on.
Like, absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's that kind of idea, 100%. So, like, learn to have that discipline, even if it's just for that reason.
Xander, I loved that comment, buddy. That was great. Xander said, "Back to work I go. This was a great discussion. I wish I had this figured out at 24, like D-Day," which is Josh. Thank you, Xander. That was a fucking great comment because we now are seeing in real time the effect that is having on people when they're asking themselves these hard questions. Congratulations to you, Xander. I'm fucking hyped. That was great.
Yeah.
That was an awesome.
Hey, we'll send you a pic of the dog. I know you wanted to see the dog, so we'll take we'll take a picture of him and DM it to you. I'll find you and friend you, and we can send it to you since I know you wanted to see him. What do we have on Instagram?
Some really good shit, actually.
Yeah.
So
read it out.
So yeah, I'll read it.
We've got a lot. We haven't checked Instagram in a minute, so we're gonna read off of here.
I won't read the user just in case he wants to be completely anonymous to Facebook for any reason. But this gentleman said, "Something I do is write poetry where I think hard about my life. Already I'm loving this. Both of those things come from the same chakra point, like I said earlier, creativity and sexual energy. My brain has been rewired to depend on it for gratification in my single life. How do you go after something like that? Porn on the note for me," he says afterwards, which I believe he's saying, how do you, is that how you read it? Is how do you...
I think it's just a matter of like, how do you, once you get involved in that, like, routine of the instant gratification, especially when you're single and you don't have a partner to rely on to kind of fulfill that biological need, how do you then reintegrate into...
how do you go after something? How do you go on after you get Alex, we'll fucking nail that. We'll get to that. Then I used to do cam shows too, and it almost ended me. Thank you for your honesty, man. Up in jail, that was my first wake-up call. And then you guys taking it in on from a secular perspective rather than a Christian perspective constantly. I love that you said that, and I mentioned that in the beginning. I think that you probably joined the chat a little bit later, but we did say in the beginning, neither of us really particularly identify as religious, and I think that is very important in a society where religion is practically dead now, and the virtues come from different places, and that is neither negative or positive comment, but my point is that the fact that this still comes from, it just comes from
it's at that
out
point,
of life, out of the fucking ether.
Right, I was going to say at that point, I think that's almost a better kind of petri dish to be operating in, because then the morality and the virtues that you inherit are more innate and they're more direct as opposed to impressed through some sort of other, narrative agenda, some sort of scripture, etc. They're more almost like it's like drinking straight from the source,
Alex, I got some. I'm just harsh, so I got some harsh wording, and then he'll probably clean it up. But what I would say, how do you go on after something like that? And I worded this in this. We got to talk about the freestyle later, because there's a lot of this shit was worded in that song.
Yeah.
I took on this narrative, and it's basically that you simply pick up your cross and walk, to put it in a Christian term. You just do it. It's like people being so upset that they're learning an instrument at an old age, or they're picking up a painting, or so whatever the hobby is, and they dwell on the past and what they've done, and just focus on the here and now, what you have at hand, and you will succeed. You cannot succeed dwelling in the past, and that's just true all around. It doesn't matter what it's about. Your past is your past, whether you won the fucking Grammys last year or you were in a gutter, sleeping with meth heads just to get a fucking quick fix. It doesn't matter where you were. The past is the past. You are not your past. You are a result of your past, a product, but you are not it.
Yeah.
And so how do you go on after that, Alex? I would just say I was arrested last year. I was in jail last year. And I was arrested for what I was charged with an OWI. I wasn't currently in the car, but it didn't matter because I admitted to driving at some point in the night. I was eventually charged with an OWI. And I'm still on probation. I'm on probation until January. And it's because I made a dumbass mistake. I got really fucking drunk. I blew twice over the legal limit. And it took what you just said. It took waking up in jail for me to be like, God damn, like I got to change some shit, man. And it was fucking hard, man. I had everyone against me. I had everybody telling me that, it's going to be hard. They're going to ride your ass being a musician. You're going to you're going to try to go out of state. They're going to drug test you every fucking time you come back. My lawyer even told me that. He was like, look, dude, you're going to have a rough go at it. You're a long-haired kid. You're in a rock band.
You got tattoos.
You're tattooed up. This judge is going to pick you apart, buddy. I mean, that's not word for word what he said, but he basically said, you're going to have a rough go at it. Yeah. And here I am standing, living fucking proof, Alex, that you can make it, man. I'm a year sober. I'm past a year sober. I'm past 9 months sober of porn. And I was in jail just like you. I didn't do a lot of time or anything. I did a day. I did a drunk tank fucking one nighter. It was enough. And like you said, that was what it was for you. That was your first wake up call. And I like that you said that. And it is a secular perspective to have, it's entirely different. It's the other fucking side of the ballgame is waking up in a consequence. And sometimes it takes that. It takes that, man. Yeah. And thanks for sharing your side, Alex. I really appreciate you saying that.
Definitely, man. And, again, after the live stream too, we're checking our pages constantly. So if you ever want to chat about any of this, one of us will hop on there and we'll talk and, we can go more in depth. We hope you're doing well.
Thanks, man. I really love this, man. I'm so glad it's not just silent.
This is what we want. Yeah, we didn't want to just be talking at screens the whole time with no reverberation. This is great to see. So Josie says, yes, it is. OMG, thank y'all. It is cheating at its core. I feel that it comes back to a complete oversight of the care we are meant to have for our significant others, when no immediately translates to porn/masturbation. Quite literally, they've neglected to address why their partner has said no.
Now there's a perspective.
Which is, one second, we have to click see more. Which is a symptom of the true lack of connection between two people and breeds toxicity instead of nurture.
Well said. And that was a side that, we don't, identify as women, so we don't have the maternal energy. We don't have natural feminine energy that takes that. That is 100% true, and that is the perspective that comes from that side of things that we can't have, and that is still true. And
that, like this is a learning experience for us too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like this is what we want. So
I think Brianna was saying laugh out loud to something that we had said, or maybe not something funny we said, and I don't know what that meant. So,
I don't know. Yeah. It might have been about the dog thing, DMing about the dog, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
So real quick, I want to jump to a completely different subject because I know this has been extremely long-winded, and anyone who's been here since the beginning, I don't know if there is anyone who has, but you are awesome, and I don't know how to reward you for doing that, but we should try to find a way to do that. So one thing I want to talk on is I don't think we've gotten into mental health and how porn relates to that and affects it. Really, it all maybe a couple minutes in the beginning, but I do want to dive into that. And I think the biggest and most obvious piece that we should tackle is just body image. I think that it's
fuck yes.
It's literally like,
how did we not talk about that immediately?
I mean, I've been waiting. So to me, I have the perspective that as a man, I'm sure this is a similar experience as a woman. As a man, if you go and you watch porn, typically the dudes are fucking jacked, like hairless bodies,
muscular,
and they're all bald. I swear to God, like, just
they just like two. They're bald, man. You haven't been in the game long enough.
I guess so, or it's been a while, but
like they're all the same face,
Yeah, just crazy, like veiny, pumped out motherfuckers, like just exuding confidence.
Camera angle making them look this fucking big,
right? Like literally, it to me is like watching Marvel movies and then comparing yourself, And so I think that leads to a lot of, or I should rephrase that. It's a large contributing factor to the rampant nature of depression in our generation, because we are all living in a society that, at least on paper, says that watching porn is okay and that being involved in like porn culture unspoken. Not even okay, but that's the norm. It's not even that I think inherently most people know that it's like
Alex said
dirty,
that.
wrong.
Yeah, Alex actually said it is interesting. Most men know, and I love that you said that, Alex, because it's like alcoholism or anything like that. Like you can refuse it all day and say I don't have a problem or this or that, but like you said, I mean, most men truly know. And again, we're going to talk about this song later. The title of the song I've been mentioning over and over again that is a complete rejection of porn is called You've Always Known. I mean, that takes it back. It's like men know, women know, we all know at the heart of what our problems are. And just to take it to a philosophical level, yes. To take it to a philosophical level, it's like that's kind of the nature of the illusion of reality, is that like you come here and you already know the answers to everything. Like Socrates said, knowledge is recollection. You don't actually learn anything new. You just rediscover over and over again through every life you've ever had, because at the heart of you, you're all knowing.
Right.
And that goes into our own beliefs of spirituality.
Right.
And then Alex says, the reason why we refuse to accept it and let our horniness take. Yeah, what we were saying earlier. You refuse to accept the why, so you give yourself the consequence or the answer, we were saying, which Josie did say, waking up in consequence needs to be a lyric if it's not.
Oh, dude.
That's a good one. That's a good one. This is a high five for Josie.
Boom.
That was yours, Josie. It wasn't his.
So bringing it back though into how porn ties into mental health. So like it gives me the impression it's like this. It's analogous with comparing yourself to like Thor. Like just this He-Man fucking macho, like all he like literally like the gets all the women kind of do because he's getting all the women, like all this kind of stuff, and they're like, someone said earlier jokingly like they're faking it, all this stuff, and not like it's like WWE, like Like we all know they're fucking.
Oh, we all know, yeah.
Like, but we put that aside because we want that shit to be like more gangster than it actually is.
Yeah.
And we just like take it for what it is. And so, but the thing is, even if we know in our hearts of hearts that all this shit is being staged and being faked, you're still consuming this content that presents these ideas. And past a certain threshold, you're going to start to believe it. You're going to start to believe these things. And you're going to, like, I'm going to start believing that this dude, like pleasures women in this way. And, like, listen, we probably sound like stale, kind of dudes. But the thing is, you start holding yourself to a standard that is ultimately unobtainable, unachievable through, like, natural measures. So
I mean, and I won't diverge too far, but like I actually went through that. I actually, no matter what I was told from my sexual partner, I thought they were lying. I was like, there's no way I'm pleasuring them. I can't go fucking 80 minutes, plow, all this stimulation, all this going on all the time, all this craziness. I can't do it. I'm not enough. And it was like, even being told, like, I'm not enough. And even having the sexual partner be like, you are enough. You do it well enough, like, you're fine. Like, I don't know, do I not express it? Now there's another problem.
Yeah, I know. Then you exude. It's like how when you're anxious and then everyone in the room begins to feel anxious, you begin to spread that, like, weariness and that self that what's the word, like the
self-deprecation.
Like self-deprecation, lack of self-confidence into the other person, because you then are projecting those problems onto them. And then they start to quit, even if the fucking person doesn't watch porn at all. Then they start...
Now they're a byproduct of what you're picking up.
So then it creates all of this is how it creates all these artificial definitions of physical intimacy and love. And that's the root of the issue, is that it's... Again, we know, like, we can, if I'm having a conversation with probably anybody, we can say, okay, like, porn, they're all faking it. Wrestling, they're all faking it. You know what I mean? Yeah, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there are things we know, or like a lot of, like, gangster rappers faking it. A lot of them are real, but a lot of them fake it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Right, yeah. So, but the thing is, if you expose yourself to it enough, that is what you begin to attribute to that interaction. So, like, if I watch enough, it's like the fucking person who Sarah mentioned earlier, her ex that liked animal porn.
Yeah,
like,
and mother son. Right,
and mother son, like all that, you know. So that only happens when you are impressed with, like, the previous level, because that's like all the way down the line kind of shit. And it's like, but you can't get there unless you knock down each domino on the way. And it's like, which domino are you at, and which domino are you going to put the fucking board in front of and stop the cycle, you know? And it's hard because then, like, you can't really, like, as a human being, you can't just jump out of it at that point. You have to, like, put each one back up and, like, dial it back piece by piece. And, like, I'll speak for both of us because I just know this is true. Like, you're gonna break if you're trying to get out of the cycle. You're gonna break, and you're gonna probably break a lot. Like, it's hard. It's like anything else. Like, he's been sober of alcohol for 15-ish months or so, and that's not. I don't really have a current desire to be sober of alcohol entirely, but I like to limit myself. And the thing, I'll be straight up. Like, the past couple of months, it's been very, very difficult. Because the pandemic is, again, in our society, normalized just getting drunk all the fucking time. Like, I feel like everyone's just
indoctrinated, really. No, indoctrinated.
Like,
not even normalized, indoctrinated. Because it is pushed in frats and sororities. It is on billboards. It is not illegal, although marijuana is in most places, and is definitely not as physically endangering, and is still pressed to the front of your fucking TV screen.
Yeah, like, it's hard, man. Like, that's something I keep breaking on. Because now it's like, oh my God, every single thing you go to on the holidays, if you're not drinking, it's horrible. Because everyone's just drunk. Like, I don't mean to, like, okay, love my family and everything, but it's just drunk people in general. When you can speak to this,
Yeah.
when you're the only person who is sober in a room full of drunk people, even if it's your best fucking friends, it's not fun. It's not generally a good time.
Yeah.
Simply, not even because the interactions are bad, but because the temptation is so intense.
And you're not on the same level. Like you're not in the same state of mind. And we as human beings, we search for like a way to relate in any and every way we can. I mean, we're relating now that's how we're even having a conversation. Right. Is that we both have an interest in the subject on both sides of it. Yeah.
And so, like, I guess to bring this back full circle, is that it's hard. It's hard to break that habit, whether you're watching it, whether you're making it, and it's, you know, part of your livelihood, whatever. And like, I don't know, it's almost like a lifestyle, you know? It's like you wake up, you work, you go on a run at lunch, you come home. Yep. Like it just becomes ingrained in routine. It's the same thing as like beer with dinner kind of thing, or, you know, smoke breaks at work kind of idea. Like it literally becomes like you block out time to do this thing.
And I think it's important to note too that like a lot of people, like when a problem is presented, any problem, anything at all, a drug problem, alcohol problem, porn problem, anything, the first argument usually presented is like, well, what about in moderation? And what about my special situation where I only, like how Brianna said, I typically only watch about 6 minutes, or if I go on a rant, I go on a lot of rants about alcohol where I say you would be better without alcohol entirely, right? I'll get involved in that with that person, and I'll say something along the lines of like, well, like, could you put away like none at all? Could you? Yeah, I could. Usually the thing is I could, but I get something positive out of it. I talk better or this or that. And the argument I always put forth is, okay, well then you would be better without it, because you without it would be forced to talk without it. And you would get good at talking without it because you have to. We're having a technical issue real quick. We're going to see.
All right, we're good. We're back. Oh, hold on. We have another one now. Literally both phones just had some shit happen to it once.
So this one actually is probably, let me just look real quick. Yeah, this one's at 80%, so you can be.
No, you're good. I was going to say, let's go ahead, and because we've been on this for quite a while. We should let the people
rest.
Yeah. Maybe rest in room.
And maybe we'll go.
Keep going. So
maybe we'll go like part 2 again on this.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, I think let's go ahead and touch on the track, the freestyle you released. You've always known. If you want to touch on anything else specific in there,
okay,
that you, and then we can kind of give some like closing remarks. If anyone else has anything to say, go ahead and send it over. Brianna says, I've only done mostly scenes with women and solo. I've worked with 2 guys and did not find them attractive at all. It was purely just acting. So see, there's your proof. Someone who has been in the industry saying that it's primarily just acting. Yeah. And the consequence of that is intensely dramatic on the viewer. In terms of like body comparison and the interactions that happen in that process, all of that. So
I'm going to pull up the... So for now, we won't be able to answer Facebook questions.
So what he's pulling up is the lyrics to a freestyle that he released, or I should say we released, but that he wrote and we released a couple months ago, called You've Always Known. It is about this subject in its entirety. He's going to call out some of the lyrics because they really they do a good job of succinctly addressing a lot of these in poetry, which we think is, obviously we think is really cool as musicians. So, all right, go ahead.
I do know them by heart, but I'm going to read them. Okay, so like you said, this song is called You've Always Known. Alex, hope you're still viewing, because this is something I think you'll like, the poetry involved. So what I'm gonna do is I'll probably just go ahead and just read it stanza by stanza and kind of explain briefly, as brief as I can on some of them. And again, if you want to listen to this, if you want to go ahead and hop off and just listen yourself and have your own takeaway on the lyrics, or if you want to listen to it later, you can go on Bandcamp and type in Normandy with a U, spelled just like if you found this, then you can find it. But yeah, the track will be under Freestyle Sessions Volume 2. There's also a video on Instagram on IGTV. If you're on Instagram, you can go ahead and click off if you want to and click the IGT videos. There's a 1-minute intro of me like driving in a car. The song will start briefly, maybe a minute into it. So the lyrics go, a perverted universe at a kid's fingertips. In his innocent adolescence, not as bad as you'd guess it. It's much worse. It's touched our girls with such hurt, it fucking tugged their self-worth from under their feet. A rug we need to burn. How can she stand up if we just keep tugging? I think that's pretty point in case. It's just talking about, an emotional grab at the reader / listener that, this is at a kid's fingertips, in today's society, even as young as I've seen like 7-8-year-olds have iPhones, this is truly at the adolescent's fingertips, and it's worse than you think how young it goes these days. So then, and then briefly touches how it can affect the self-esteem. I put it in the narrative of girls because this is what I've personally seen with me being a man and how I've affected past relationships. And of course, the analogy is that they're standing on a rug. And then obviously the metaphorical visual of, pulling that rug out from under them so they can ultimately stand on their own. A lust we need to spurn. She at least deserves a man to try and cease the urge to watch porn, obviously, not to have sex with him. She ain't demanding tithes, just a chance at a real romantic life. Be that man, damn it. Tithes, if anyone isn't aware, I did have to explain this to Josh, is there a religious connotation because a tithe is a 10% of your wealth made. It is demanded of the church, and so I'm drawing a comparison to churches. It is not like she is demanding 10% of your income just given to her like charity. She's asking for a chance at something real and something that you have dedicated your life to be involved with. So be a fucking man. And there'll be some harsh lines like that in here because that is my stance. Even while the billionaire bandits manufacture fantasies and plant the seeds that damage, we still can recover from the virtual synthetic lovers, my brothers. That's a really long one, and the phrasing is long in the song if you hear the instrumental. But basically just touching on the fact that, these are billionaire companies, and that they are coming up with the directions, the scenes, the content, the themes, the titles, all of it, and that they are the manufacturers of what you're seeing, and they're giving you, what will eventually become your fetish or fantasy or addiction, even ultimately. That they're planting a seed that will damage, but even then, we can recover from these. You got to dig up underneath. This runs much deeper than rap. Play this track back if you're backtracking. Monkey on your monkey on your back, or a black tar dragon. That's just monkey on your back is a phrase that came out in the 80s that was talking about heroin addiction. You're fighting the monkey on your back. Black tar heroin, or a dragon called chasing the dragon, chasing a high. Or a black tar dragon. In the vein of addiction, these are the banes of existence. Same thing, we just give them a different name. Still the fangs of the vicious drip with the blood of the stricken. Being that, these are all in the vein of addiction, and that they're all under the umbrella of that term, and that we're just changing the names and faces. I'm calling porn synonymous with alcoholism and marijuana. I would say marijuana, but that shit's fine. Most just feel alone, but we're a stone's throw away. Some try to find a way and bring people with them. Others get stoned. Some shape into daggers, and I aim for the latter. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. But sticks and stones are just a poke when you were fashioned by the struggle. Who said words were like daggers? They just added to the rubble. That's a really long phrasing, and there's a lot of stones analogies and a lot of concepts being intertwined with double meanings. And I will leave that one to you guys, honestly, because I think I could probably do a 15-minute bit on just that area because there's so much in there. But long story short, you can overcome, like I said earlier, pick up your cross and walk. So then I go on to say, so call me old-fashioned, but if you come crashing down, you just got to get back up again. If it happens again, kick that habit and not the fucking bucket. Self-explanatory. I was winning this fight, but I let the parasites bore in. Just out of boredom, my pair of eyes soared into cyberspace to find a place of paradise through distorted eyes. I'm hypnotized and swirling in a fucking whirlwind and morphing into a scorpion who's shorting himself venom before beginning battle. There's a lot in there, but to say that, like, even just something as little as boredom can really derail you. And I think a lot of times that is the fucking foundation of it all, is that you're just simply bored. You're simply not getting satisfaction in your own life, and you turn to porn as an answer. And, I called it a parasite. You're the host, and it only lives through you. Porn cannot thrive without the viewer, and it's boring into you. I call it hypnotizing, distortion. It's right down to the blue light screens, just bringing you in. Like we were talking about the beauty of it, the presentation of it all, all of it is just a factor in why you're addicted. I will tattle on me for accountability. I'll count 1,000,000 sheep before I see that I'm asleep. But now I'm awake in a dream. I see they've been taken from me. I think it's not self-explanatory. The only thing I would explain is just on a personal level, I did say I'll count 1,000,000 sheep before I see that I'm asleep. Is just kind of dig at myself that I truly, as a person, just a little insight on myself, I feel like I take a long time to learn a lesson, and I learned the hard way, as I mentioned before, having to be jailed for alcoholism. Lucifer, I'm lucid in producing useful bars, this being this song. So far, the youth have listened, though most of them stupid. Some get it, at least a bit. You ridded religion, but not the spirit. Like I said, there's going to be some harsh things in here. Just calling everyone stupid. Like, just calling people out on the fact that, no one's, due to what I sing Lucifer being like evil, due to that influence, they've just been dumbed down, and you ridded religion, but you can't cast true spirituality out. I hear this, quotations, I'm not stopping because I don't feel a difference. End of quotations. This ignorant sentence will keep you under their will. The wealthy will kill stealthily, and nobody felt it coming. With these sudden fucking combustions and chemical dumpings, they've kept us up in the dumps and feeling depleted. We are deleting our histories, but it seems they're repeating. A lot of these are pretty self-explanatory. Signed with the devil himself, just to revel in wealth. That's the companies, these industries signing women to these binding contracts that, basically that they're exempt from, the legalities. An evil path of greed, so hack that hand or pluck that fucking eye. It's going to take a sacrifice if you want to be that type of light. More of the harsh lyrics. But why expect a Jekyll inside of Mr. Hyde? Inspect and find a respectful type of guy lying in wait. Or wait, is he lying because he's trying to break a hymen? Just a little humor. Opposing sides tried to go and make a joke of guys. That is a key ingredient. I'll just touch on it now. I really believe that. I really feel like one plot, one scheme in the grand scheme, in the great scheme of enslaving all of us, is the fact that you must attack the head of the household, the masculine, the straight vertical line, the thing that goes and kills the food and brings it home because it is physically stronger. You have to attack that powerhouse of things and make a joke of them, make them laughable. That's why I'm using these harsh, fucking hard lines in here, is to just be a fucking man. And I don't mean that in a toxic masculinity way. I mean, just be what you were meant to be, what you were born to be. Pick up your fucking cross and walk, kind of thing. Just hold yourself accountable. Don't let them make you a joke. Don't make the supposed love of your life try and hold a candle to a standard set so fucking high and outlandish. And it ends there. And I think that you can take away from that line what you will. So those are the lyrics. If you please listen afterwards, maybe we'll drop the link in the comments.
Yeah, it's on
afterwards.
It's not on like Spotify and all that kind of stuff. It's only on Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube, because it's just a freestyle session. So just a heads up, it's not going to be on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all that kind of shit, because it's all self-produced. It's done in house, and we put it up ourselves. So same with all the other freestyles. If you want to hear any of them.
And if you stuck around through all that, thank you. I know that was a very lengthy read.
Looks like we got some stuff on Instagram, and I'll pull up Facebook here. Okay. Brianna says dad bods for the win. Hell yeah. That line made me cry. Like hit so deep because felt tower card summed up. Josie, let us know which line you're talking about.
Tower card summed up. You talking about are you talking about the Dark Tower? Because fuck yeah, that's where I got the monkey on your back. Josie, if you're talking about the monkey on your back line, I got that from the Dark Tower. Swear on my life, I got that from the Dark Tower. Eddie Dean in the fucking Dark Tower is painted with this monkey on his back because he is a heroin addict. And if you caught that, Josie, I fucking love you. And wow, I did not expect any tears on this. So that is something.
We have anything over there?
Oh, that was it on that?
Yeah. Yep. Just a few on here.
Alex says, top sexual depression with COVID, and you get a raging monster.
Literally.
Depression, hands down, is the worst monster you can experience, and the lust of porn adds to depression while stimulating the senses, of course. Yes, I think depression is a whole nother live stream we could go really, really deep diving on again, and what and our beliefs of where that can come from, and what assists that, and what big companies and grand schemes can attribute to that. But I think I like that you said that. It is definitely a recipe for disaster is what you're saying. When you are working on yourself, Alex asks, while single, and then something, parentheses, like college, gets ripped out from under you because of unforeseen circumstances, question mark. This is a topical question because I saw something growing with a girl, non-sexual, which was so good for me. And then porn slipped in with it because of COVID. Okay, so I see what you're saying. Yeah. I had to leave college early because of COVID. It made me to graduate online, which was a whole new mental game of gymnastics that hurt me so terribly. Okay, so I see what you're saying is that you're commenting that. So I don't think it was an actual question. I think he was just stating, when you're working on yourself, you have all other stresses is what he's getting at. And then on top of that, you have COVID and then depression and all that. Then you get something real and you take it from yourself ultimately with porn. Well said, Alex. I think that we definitely shouldn't blame the woman either for having a standard. You're watching porn, I don't like that. Now you're thinking, oh, she ain't cool, or she's not the girl for me. Good luck, buddy. Because it's like you're gonna find hopefully you do find a problem.
It takes it back to the cliche, but just put on the other pair of shoes. Like, would you want that?
Oh man.
And
Rihanna, oh my gosh, that hit me.
I know. I saw. We'll read it out in a second, but yeah, I know. I saw that, and I'm just very happy. But you got to put yourself in that other pair of shoes. Like if you were the woman in that scenario. And this isn't necessarily to you. You is like the metaphorical you. Like one needs to put themselves into the other person's pair of shoes and think like, okay, would I want them to do that? Because like I think simply again speaking from a male perspective, because that is the perspective that I experience. I think that as a guy in Western culture, it's pretty like a girl watching porn is in the minority of women, from what I've experienced at least. And
it's definitely manufactured towards men. You can tell that with the way the scenes are shot.
Right. So I think that men go into relationships kind of with like an underlying assumption that the woman just like porn won't be a threat to you. Like the woman probably isn't someone who watches porn. At least that's been my experience in all my relationships.
Well, what I've heard recently is that is definitely, and this is obvious probably to you, but it is definitely more of a thing now than it was.
Yeah.
And it's ever increasing.
Right.
But you are 100% correct. It is in majority a problem for men.
Right. So I guess the thing that I'm trying to get at is that it can be hard to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, especially from the male perspective, putting on the female shoes, because the like underlying assumption that at least been put in me since I was a kid was that like, oh, girls just don't really watch porn. So then it's like not a threat, it's like, oh, I might do it, but she doesn't do it, so like I don't feel threatened.
Right.
And then you can say like, oh yeah, she could do it and it wouldn't bother me. But you can say that knowing she doesn't want to do it anyways.
Yeah, that's good.
So then it's like, okay, put yourself in the shoes of like, what if she actually did it? Or what if you were her and then like you're the one watching the porn?
Or what if she makes porn?
Right.
Yeah, it's like those are narratives people harbor.
So then you have to be the one to have the conversation, and you've got to speak up in the same way that she did with you and say like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this thing, and like that's okay, like that's fucking communication. Like that's what we're supposed to do in our relationships. That's what they're built on. And I think people just get afraid of the rejection that's possible when you do that, because it's like, oh, it's this fragile thing, and if we butt heads, it's gonna fall apart and all this. But my rebuttal to that would be, I've been in relationships like that, and I'm fucking happy I'm not anymore. Yep. So and that's not to say that if there's like fragility there, that it can't be conquered, because I'm sure that it can. But you have to come together and have that conversation. You cannot avoid it. It is not something that can just be put aside and swept under the rug, because shit like that creates toxic environments. And I guarantee, if it's not to that point already, that kind of a situation is a million times harder to get out of than if you had just impacted at the start. And that's speaking from personal experience. It is so much more difficult to get out of a Stockholm syndrome kind of situation where it's like you're just used to because, okay, it starts with like brushing the whole porn conversation under the rug. But then it can get to like just the smallest little things, It can be like, I don't like not liking when someone's on their phone when you're out at a date. Like I personally don't like my girlfriend and I, we don't touch our phones when we go out on a dinner date. Like we try to just, experience what's happening. It's like, otherwise we're going to just stay at home and eat at home. We wouldn't pay money and go out and get dressed up to just be on our phones. So, but you might not have a simple, like that should be a fairly simple conversation, unless something, important's going on. Like if someone's in a hospital or something, it's like, yeah, be on your phone. But save extreme circumstances like that. That should be a simple conversation to have. You might have different rules, like if you're on your phones at dinner and you're cool, then whatever, but you should be allowed to talk about that. But something that small could be hard to talk about, and it like in a toxic environment, and it could all start with never having that conversation about the porn in the beginning, because that's one of those things that people just don't like to touch. And again, like we don't even like to touch it. Yeah. It's not uncomfortable anymore now that we've been having conversations with everyone. Again, thank you to everyone who's contributed. Yes. It's been very awesome. But it's hard, it's hard to bring it up. It's scary.
Yeah. I think when something is pushed, anything pushed, and it becomes popularized in a vast majority, or even what's meant to look like the masses are liking something, which that's another thing. Right. It's really hard to go against that. It's really hard to go against the grain. And I think that people like to feel like they are, like let's say, not to dive in too far, but people like to feel like they're a part of something. Yeah. And people like to feel like they're going against what everyone's going against. And it's kind of this weird like dissonance where you join a fad to get away from joining a fad. It's just kind of this, it's just a phenomenon, I guess. And I think it's just important to, diagnose every part of your life, be introspective, whatever it is at all. And I think that the porn conversation is a really, really good way to get someone to start really thinking about what they likely don't think really much about at all. Yeah. For myself, I found it incredibly weird to say out loud with my vocal cords what I had watched than just to watch it. And I think that's obvious. That's obvious, but it's like you can so much easier think something than say it.
Yes.
It's like
I think that's why people say shit on the internet too.
Exactly.
Say it out loud because it's like thinking. You don't have to use your vocal cords.
And I think that's important to think about is like, do I hide my thoughts from myself? You know, it's like, you're thinking them, you are.
Yeah.
But how does it affect you when you say it? Because your words are creation, you're creating it.
Yeah.
It's like inside your thoughts, the problem doesn't exist. It doesn't exist if I just ignore it. And you just reap all the effects without ever visiting the cause.
Right.
But I try it out sometime. Try it out. Just talk, like get in the car. Just talk about the things that you're thinking in your head. Just do it out loud.
Or speak them into existence.
Just like let's say you've been thinking a lot about something particular at work, right? And you're driving to work. Just start talking about it. Just be like, just say out loud, just to the universe, like, I am consistently thinking that somebody needs to do this about this, and all of a sudden your problems work themselves out. And that's why we love talking to people and not just ourselves. Is you're one person playing ping pong with a fucking brick wall. You need the bounce back. And that's why people call it bouncing ideas off each other. And that depth of perspective, becomes infinite as soon as there's another person there.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you're not capable with just yourself to think of diagnose a problem, but I think it is much easier when you can communicate. And I think that porn can rob you of the ability to communicate on many, many levels with your significant other.
Yep.
Brianna says, working in the industry is extremely validating for me. I find a lot of gratification in knowing that so many men, for lack of a better term, are tossing it to my pictures or video. I don't think it's devalued me at all. I think it's made me a stronger person. The porn industry has gotten so much bigger since COVID. I like working with my girlfriends. Okay, so what I would say to that again is could be seen as harsh, or it could be seen as like, a perspective that's like either duh or like, oh, that's oversimplification. So I'll just throw that out there now. But what I would again tackle that with, well, why is it validating? It's like where it's validating for you because you feel sexually attractive. It's like also, like you were saying, these are, married men. These are men that now that you are aiding, right, in this act. And so if nothing else, I would say, to put it bluntly, you are gaining satisfaction by the means of assisting an addiction and assisting it almost like drug dealing is how I would put it. And I would say that, of course, there's a satisfaction, like, there's satisfaction from the wealth. Like you could say, a drug dealer can really cut off that association with what they're doing to their community when they give drugs to people in exchange for money. They could cut that off with, well, I'm feeding my family. My livelihood is increased because I along with my family have more wealth. And that is a positive. That is definitely a positive thing. But I think ultimately what comes into question is at what expense?
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, that's just kind of like the harsh narrative that I have. It's validating for me, she says, because I've worked so hard to look the way I look, and I'm very proud of where I've come from, right? I'm a post-op transgender model. I don't really lead with that because I don't think it's a lot of people's business, but I also don't mind sharing my story to the right people. Yeah. So, and I do understand that, and I've had this idea presented to me before of like, it's gratifying when you're proud of what you look like. It's kind of like the idea of like posting the post-workout selfie. You wouldn't post it to no one. Obviously, you post it so people can see it. And I would just say that also comes down to like the morality in question. Like, do you value people seeing you naked because they are like because they're your significant other, they've earned it, or is your requirement to see you naked, can it just be accessible by computer link, or can it be accessible through years of marriage or whatever? It's just where your morality lies. And my morality lies not in where the societal standard is. My morality does not lie in where in a religious connotation. My morality lies entirely based on, does it produce positive effects in the most general and uplifting for everyone kind of way. And I guess you could say, it's stimulating from an economical perspective of just the porn industry, and it's stimulating in a personal level for you because you're proud of the changes and all that you said in the hard work. And I would just say that, maybe not giving that side of yourself to people and now aiding them for potential dangerous habits forming. You could have a healthier outlet. You could just simply model. And if the argument from there would be that it's not high paying enough, well, then it would come down to what will you sacrifice for wealth?
Because you could take it to the musical perspective. We don't get paid. We have made zero personal dollars
right
off of this.
And I do understand, and I do understand the perspective of I've had stripper friends and stuff like that, where the argument has come to, well, I make a lot of money doing this. I don't have a degree. And this is the most money I can make doing this. And so I took it again to more of an undercut. I was like, okay, so you're saying you are fulfilled because men are throwing money at you because they're attracted to you, and you feed your kids. Can I ask you this? Why do you have to be drunk every time you strip? Why are you literally incoherent by the end of the night? And that was what started a pretty deep and heated discussion at one time, because she had never been demanded to really think about why she had to do this drunk. I'm not suggesting that you do your webcam shows or any of your scenes drunk. But what I'm saying is there is a trade-off. There's a sacrifice, and I think that, in my personal opinion, there is a lot, not a loss, but a depletion of their own self-respect because they trade it for money, or like you're saying, for self-gratification. And I just think that there are more, there are less harmful ways that you can express that or get that same satisfaction without taking along the way more, more, like I was saying, with the men that tune in, there's obviously a consequence for their lives that they're responsible for getting on, and you're responsible for giving them they're not giving them the platform. Yeah, giving them the platform, I guess, is a good way to say it.
Right, because it wouldn't exist without the supply. Yeah. So Josie says, I can understand where Brianna's coming from. However, for me personally, I feel so invalidated by being sexualized, whereas being acknowledged for something everlasting like my personality or intellect brings me so much validation. And Brianna says, I'm also a personal chef for a living. The girls and the photographers and the producers that I've worked with in the industry do not work with anyone that is a substance abuser of any kind. That is good. So at least, that kind of... Yeah,
and I figured that. I mean, when you were saying you were proud of it and all that too, I my first thought wasn't that you were getting drunk and all that to do it. I was just saying that I was offering a side of perspective of there is definitely a trade-off, and there is definitely a trade-off in those fields, because there's something happening there that they're feeling like they need the aid of alcohol, or the what was the word? The kind of like that, there it is, the dilution, diluting their emotions, right, so they can carry out something, so they can get the product back, the means, the money, the wealth, the gratification, whatever. Now, I see what you're saying. You're saying from the perspective of...
Here, let me... you won't finish what you're... So, and then she mentions, I also don't have to have a relationship with anyone online at all. So here's a big point for me is I know you do not have to have a relationship with anyone online at all. And this is why it's so hard to have this conversation, because it's like what we talked about at the very beginning of the video, that there are two very different sides of this coin.
Yeah.
And it's really it's the balancing act. And so what I would say to that is you do not have to have a relationship with anyone except for the people that you're like actually physically interacting with to film. Now, the person on the other side does create a relationship with whoever it is that they're watching in the
consciously or unconsciously.
Right. I would say more often than not unconsciously, because you probably wouldn't do it if you consciously knew this was happening.
Yeah.
But it's and I think anyone who's had experience as a viewer could attest to the fact that you are feeling an innate virtual relationship. It's like a virtual fling that you're having. And also, sorry, Gabe's getting up on the phone camera for Instagram because our iPad we were checking comments with died. But so the viewer then creates this association, almost this association of love with the actor or the actress. And Brianna says that's where the acting comes in. And I think that's exactly it. It's like you're acting on one side, and on the other side, again, we took it back to the viewer can, we all know it's like an acting game. But the thing is, even if you know that going into it as a viewer, you still are watching this action, which is naturally, like sex is a naturally occurring process. And for it to be presented in this way paints a picture of what you should expect out of your own sexual life, you being the viewer. And then that viewer then takes that with them, carries the backpack into their relationship, and it creates, an environment that's been impressed upon them.
And she followed up with, "I'm creating a fantasy for you." That case in point, that's like the answer, the proof's in the pudding. The fantasy is quite literally manufactured right then and there, and is further perpetuating what we've been talking about for the last 2 hours, is like the further perpetuating those problems interpersonally, spiritually, physically. If nothing else, these men are depleting themselves of their life energy instead of, basically essentially wasting a life-giving fluid where it could be creating a baby, because the act was denied, like you were saying. So then now it's reverted to this online relationship. And when I say relationship, I mean relationship like him and I have a relationship as friends. I have a relationship with my boss, relations. They relate to you with the common ground of that they are getting off to you. And of course you find that satisfying. Who wouldn't? Someone's getting off to you. But the moral involved in that is that it's like a stranger that gets to briefly tune in cyberly to have a sexual relationship with you, and then pretend in their mind that it was okay because it did not physically take place with all of their senses. Instead, it was with just one, which was obviously sight. I guess auditory too. But yeah, it's like, I hope that all made sense, because it was I kind of definitely I'm on it. I'm on one right now for sure. Right. You guys are seeing me on one. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of like this and I definitely have a lot to say about it. So if anything comes off harsh, I want you to know, Brianna, that this has nothing to do with you as a person, and that I'm not over here fuck that. It's I'll just state it respectfully, and these are the things. And I definitely hear everything out, and I think that it's important. And I'm glad you're hearing us out. You've tuned in a long fucking time. Holy shit. You've been here for a while now. And to have the opposite perspective, or I shouldn't say opposite, because obviously that you're finding something positive out of this, but to have a conflicting in some areas perspective with it. And to tune in this long, it shows some maturity there, and I really, really appreciate you tuning in with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna look at the Instagram one.
Okay. Yeah. See at least one comment up there. There might be some more.
Yeah, it was Alex again saying, basically that to take it to a moral standard, he feels that it is a version of online prostitution, and quite literally, I do believe that it is definitely in that field, because I think that if you took the cyber part out of it and put it as people in a room, that's what it would be dubbed as,
Yeah.
Or voyeurism, or whatever is in that. Yeah.
Right. This is a great conversation because there's so many aspects and tangents.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, we're not going to sit here and say, oh, everything related to the porn industry is bad and evil. Like, you make side money off this. I know you said that you're a chef for your full-time job, but like, you make side money off of this. That is like a positive. And you said you like enjoy being around the people that you work with. That's a positive. You were probably friends with some of the people that you work with,
Mm-hmm.
So like, it comes down really to a base, your basis of morality, I guess.
Exactly.
And that, is influenced by a million things, we all know. But I think for the two of us, it's largely ingrained in just our spiritual beliefs, and that's why we have the stance that we have on this. Both that and personal experience. Being someone who's experienced, depression in the past and gone through a brief phase of dealing with suicidal thoughts, I would say that porn was not like it wasn't like an enormous contributor, but it definitely was a contributor, because it leads to me like body shaming myself and that kind of stuff, things like that, like all these unrealistic expectations, because like Brianna mentioned, it's like, it is creating a fantasy, it is manufactured, it is acting. But as a viewer, like, you don't have someone who comes on the screen in the beginning and says that. You have to kind of interpret it for yourself, and it's almost like, how could it be acting if it made a real thing happen in my body? You know what I mean? Then it's real. It's real.
And I want to point out, is an active fantasy. How he was talking about earlier, where when porn is set aside, you almost realize how actually not often you're horny. Because I think it's the concept of, out of sight, out of mind. When everyday imagery is branded into your brain, imprinted deeply at these, obviously they stick in your mind. I mean, I think anybody who's had any experience with porn can close their eyes and imagine some sort of viewpoint, or like woman or man or anything that they've seen before, and they can research it and masturbate to it without porn itself. I still can research past pornographic, like photographic size videographic memories implanted in me, and from 9 months ago. I still can, because it was enough branding.
Yeah.
And to go along with that, I want to say it's important to, I think, dub morality off of what the things you do and the way you interact with all people, places, and things, what it does, what it promotes, and what it does positively. And what you do as a being, as a person, as a like you're the god of your body, and everything that you do, you influence like a ripple in water. Everything you do is a part of that wave, and the ocean is ultimately you, and that goes into the spirituality thing. And it's like, do unto others kind of thing. You want to treat everybody with what you want to be treated with, and you wouldn't want to give anyone any sort of addiction, any sort of complex, any sort of fantasy that could, further detriment what, is structured there for reasons, and that you would have to first and foremost believe that there was any sort of sacred, good thing to marriage. You would have to first and foremost believe that there's importance to man and woman roles. You would have to believe that there is an importance to the way men and women act accordingly together, and what life means altogether, and if there is any sort of meaning to you. and what you value. There's so much that goes into how you said earlier. There's so many variables.
Yeah.
But from a personal standpoint, that is what I base my moral off of. Is what sort of positivity does it promote, and for myself and others, and is it better to all around avoid it entirely? Because it is a fine line to walk. It is a definite balance, a hard balancing act to maintain these highly addictive, highly damaging habits to have any sort. It's like alcohol, I was saying, to have any sort of positive effect on you. It's almost, in my mind, not almost, it is too hard to juggle. And most people cannot do it.
So I think that probably
wraps it up.
Yeah, because it's been a good 2.5 hours.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Especially some shout outs to Brianna and Josie and Alex. All three of you guys, on Instagram. All three of you guys have tuned in for so long. Thank you so much. It means a lot to have these other perspectives. We did not expect that.
Yeah, we were hoping for it. We were hoping for it. Yeah. So
I'm very happy to hear all your guys' thoughts and opinions on it. And
if you guys want us to do, we want to do this more frequently. And it's not going to be about this subject. It's going to be varying topics and all that. We want to do this more frequently. Hearts to you, Brianna. We appreciate you and your perspective, and we hope to see you in another one in the future. So let us know also what you want us to talk about. You, even after this is over, if you think of something else, just leave a comment or message us or something. Let us know. So much love. And if you're tuning in right now and you missed the beginning or something, we'll probably put this on YouTube at some point in the next week or so. So thank you all so much again. I am Joshua D-Day.
Gabriel Van Ark.
We are Normandy, and if you have not heard our music, be sure to go and check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, all that kind of stuff. We just put out a song at the end of October that kind of covers a little bit of this stuff, and we really do appreciate you.